On this episode of the Everything Goes podcast, we have Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast, join us and discuss the Saints offseason and moves and salary cap, and we discuss NFL offseason and the World Baseball Classic. Stay tuned.
Been lit, boy. Everything goes.
We now return you to regular programming.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Everything Goes podcast with your host, TAK. We got a special guest on today. We got Ross Jackson, host of the, let me make sure I get this right, even though I listen to it every day, Locked On Saints podcast, Saints/football analysis, and contributor to the Saints Wire. Did I get all that right?
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah,
I nailed it. All right.
Got
Ross,
the whole bio up in here.
Hey,
you know what's funny, Ross?
You.
Is the one time I had a guy on from the Cowboys, and I listen to these guys diehards. It's the Sean and RJ show. I botched their name twice. And I was so embarrassed.
It's one thing when you talk about it on your own, and when you're listening to it, everything. It's a whole other thing when you have to say it to the person that does it. I completely get it.
Oh my god, it was horrible. I was so upset at myself, and I didn't do it just once. I did it twice. I called him the RJ Choppy Show, and I was like, oh my god,
RJ I do love RJ. I do love RJ.
So rough. Hey,
it was bad.
Hey, Ross, we appreciate you. I listen to your podcast every day. I found it during the regular season last year after the Saints beat Seattle, and I just had nowhere to listen to the New Orleans. I have a fiance now. I can't talk football with her. She just doesn't know it. All my friends are still in Pennsylvania. So I listen to your voice every day now. Appreciate you. Man. We appreciate you coming on the show today, and we're stoked, man. Crazy offseason so far. We talked about like 2 episodes ago, first day. I've never seen so many people be moved in my life.
Yeah, that was a lot. That Monday of legal tampering, it opened up. There was just this exodus of Saints players, and everyone was going, "Oh Lord!"
and it was tough too because division rivals. A lot of guys we lost, division rivals. I wanted to ask you about one guy though that we just brought in recently, Jamaal Williams. Yeah, how big is that signing in your eyes?
And that's a massive signing. And I'll tell you, it comes from a couple of different spots, right? There's the on-field productivity part of it. This is the guy that led the NFL in touchdowns last year with 17. Yes, I know 14 of them came within 4 yards of the goal line. But this was the New Orleans Saints team that struggled to finish drives last year. I mean, that was the thing that made that Seattle Seahawks game you referenced so specific, is that they got to the end zone. And that was something that this team struggled to do quite a bit, particularly towards the latter, let's say, quarter of the 2022 season, right? I mean, let's not forget that they got beat by a team with a quarterback who had a 3.7 passer rating to close out the season. They struggled when it came to that. And so you can see where Jamaal Williams immediately brings you exactly what it is that this team identified as a weakness after the 2022 season. Now, all of a sudden, he comes in and helps them hopefully develop it into a strength. The other thing that you get from him, too, is that he's an incredible locker room guy. I mean,
he is. Brings a presence.
Yeah, for everything that you see from him on TikTok and on the team, websites and stuff like that, with all the anime references and the Pokemon hats and all that stuff. For all of that, he's also just a solid guy. This is a guy with no baggage. He doesn't come with any record. He doesn't come with issues in his past. He doesn't come, running away from a team that, he spoiled a relationship with. Nothing like that. He's just a good dude that loves to play football and happens to do it really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he had 17 touchdowns last year. And I think the Saints combined had 12. So I think that's a huge improvement in my eyes. But do you think, I mean, we don't got to talk about the whole Kamara thing, but the Kamara thing is a question mark. Do you think the Saints still draft a QB in this year's draft, or would you?
Yeah, QB or running back?
Oh, I'm sorry, running back.
No, you're all good. Yeah, I think it's still possible, right? I mean, this is a really, really good running back class. So to a certain extent, you look at running back and you look at tight end. We're probably about to see 2 of the best collection of those 2 positions in a draft in a little while. And running back's just getting better and better and better and better.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And so why not take part in that? Why miss out on that? And so I think that there's a couple of different things to look at, is that the Saints right now only have 3 running backs on the roster. They've got Benjamin, and they're not quite sure what they have in him yet. They picked him up on waivers at the end of the season. So they automatically, because they picked him off waivers, they automatically picked up the rest of his contract. So they have the next year of his contract. Yeah. And so I think he's on the roster in 2023, or at least, he will be treated as such unless he proves otherwise during camp. But outside of that, you got Alvin Kamara, and now you've got you got Jamaal Williams. And so adding another running back makes a lot of sense. This is a team that usually goes into the training camp period with 5-6 different running backs that they rotate through. Sometimes they bring them in during camp and all that. So yeah, I don't think it precludes them at all from going into was a really talented draft of runners this year.
Is Kamara, the suspension, likely going to stand or start? Is it 6 games? Is there any expansion upon that, or is it set at 6 games if he is suspended?
Yeah, it could be more. So the way that the code of conduct policy for the NFL states it basically is that any type of, I'll say, like, allegation, charge, however it is the NFL looks at it, because they'll do their own independent investigation no matter what happens on trial. Anything that includes violent activity or violent acts has a guaranteed minimum of 6 games, is the way the code of conduct policy stretches it out. Now, I think you look at Deshaun Watson getting 11 games. I don't see how Alvin Kamara gets more than that based upon the precedent of what happened with Deshaun Watson and him having 22 cases up against him for very serious allegations. So I think it's somewhere between 6 and 10, but we won't know until after the legal process has to round out first. And that trial isn't even until July 30th, July 31st. And then the NFL will hand down sort of their discipline. Alvin Kamara will more than likely appeal. Then it'll take 2 weeks and then we'll hear about it. So we'll see where it all goes.
Hey, Ross, the franchise tag right now for running backs is around $10 million. And if you look at all these running backs who've got signed, I mean, Miles Sanders he's getting $6 million annually. David Montgomery, he only got $6 million annually. Jamaal Williams, you said 3 years, $12 million. Boston Scott,
Ekeler.
Devin Singletary, they're all getting less money. The market's going in a different direction. Some mock drafts have you guys taking Bijan Robinson from Texas. Would you take a running back in the first round now, knowing which way the market's going?
If I was a general manager, I would not. The 3 positions that I would not draft in the first round are running back, tight end, no matter how good the class is, and off-ball linebacker. I'm perfectly happy to take. In fact, if you're drafting a quarterback, you're better off drafting them in the first or second round. Because historically over the last 10 years, 75 quarterbacks have been taken in rounds 3 through 7, and one of them is a bona fide starter in the NFL, and that's Dak Prescott. We don't know about Brock Purdy yet, right? And so first 2 rounds, you're hit about a 50% rate.
We don't want to hear Dak Prescott. I'm
so sorry. My apologies. But so no, I probably wouldn't take a running back in the first round if I was a general manager. But as somebody covering the team, if they turn around and drafted a running back, if it's Bijan Robinson, I get it. Like, I understand what it is that Bijan Robinson brings to a team and how good he is.
Now, one of your big pickups was Derek Carr. Now you guys are paying more money for a quarterback.
It's not that bad of a deal, though.
Why not Winston, though? Winston was 5-2 before he got hurt. He was a cheaper quarterback, never got a true chance to be the number 1, in my eyes.
I think
why not Winston?
I think availability is a big part of it because, he was really, really good throughout that 5-2 start at the beginning of the 2021 season, but then he got injured, right? A pretty devastating injury in terms of his knee that ended his season. Then he comes back and he plays, he comes back pretty much not even fully healed from that ACL and everything that happened in that knee injury. He comes back and then he gets 4 broken vertebrae in his back in the first game and then plays through them for 2 weeks until the Saints finally said, okay, can't do this anymore. So I think you couple that with you look at the general sort of consensus around quarterbacks in the NFL and what do you know? Higher floor sometimes is more important than higher ceiling. And so Jameis Winston might be a higher ceiling prospect, but it's the people that can produce a high floor. And that doesn't mean that they're not running quarterbacks and things like that. You look at Jalen Hurts. I believe Jalen Hurts is a high floor quarterback because of what he can do, not only with his arm, because he developed so incredibly as a passer last year, but he's also a very, very fantastic runner, right? Can do a lot with his legs. So then you look at kind of where Jameis Winston sits on that spectrum. He's certainly a lot more high ceiling than he is high floor. And so I think for the Saints, and particularly for a guy like Dennis Allen, who effectively has this year to prove that he deserves to still be a head coach in the league, he's going to go and get his guys. He's not going to work with, he's not going to sit there and try to work things out with Sean's guys anymore. Remember, they tried to pick Deshaun Watson over Jameis Winston last year, but Deshaun Watson happened to choose Cleveland. So Jameis Winston was never really going to be the guy in New Orleans, unfortunately, because I think he's remarkably talented. I just think he has to be in a system that puts him in the position to win. And Sean Payton did that. Do Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael present the same opportunity that Sean Payton presented? Probably not, right? And so I think you get a guy like Derek Carr, who has a very low floor, who has a very high floor. that can win you games, that is one of the better in-game quarterbacks in the NFL, and that has been available for all but 2 games in his career due to injury, with the exception of the 2 games that he was pulled for the Raiders to get a look at Jarrett Stidham at the end of his tenure in Las Vegas.
That's
so
right,
I think
Ross.
that's kind of where all that is.
Yeah,
Plus, Winston, I don't think had much talent because Michael Thomas didn't play for him either that much.
I mean, he got 2 games. Yeah, he got 2 games, but I agree. I agree with you, Ross. I think it's that was Sean Payton's kind of quarterback, and Dennis Allen I think let it go on, and then he pulled the trigger on his guy. I was a big Taysom fan. I'll be honest, for a little bit there.
Sure.
Well, Ross, what do you think of the quarterback market? The way everything's going, you have this next round of super quarterbacks like Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Herbert. The guy Burrow, they're all. Do you think they're going to set the bar up over 50 million? And if they do that, how does that cripple these organizations? I mean, 20% of your salary, 30% of your salary, whatever it's going to be, is going to go towards one player.
Well, I think the only reason why that money goes up in terms of what the contract is because the salary cap also goes up an additional $10 to $20 million per year as well. So it's not like the salary cap just kind of stays there and then quarterbacks get more expensive. Like quarterbacks inflate because the quarterback contracts inflate because teams' ability to spend also inflates. Now you also have new TV deals, billions and billions of dollars of TV deals. That's going to impact the salary cap. Not that they're going to get to billions of dollars of salary cap space, but certainly some portion of that ends up fluffing the salary cap quite a bit. You have gambling money that will eventually show up as well. Like there's so much that's going to go into swelling there's a reason that Roger Goodell's about to get an extension with the NFL. It's because the owners are getting paid and the teams are getting to spend money. And that's what's going to keep him around. And so I think that those quarterback contracts will continue to inflate, but so too does the amount of money that not only the New Orleans Saints, but any other team, right? The NFL gets to spend on a yearly basis. What would be interesting is if they finally made the decision to remove the starting quarterback from the salary cap and make that an organizational expense. Kind of like the same way that you look at, like the same way that you pay your head coach, that you pay your general manager, all of that. Remove the starting quarterback, make that quarterback a part of the organizational operating expense, and then that frees up salary cap to be spent elsewhere. Now you'd have to see those contracts continue to boost and swell and all that other stuff. Guaranteed money would obviously have an impact in terms of what that is too, but that could be something that could be really interesting to watch for in 5, 10, 15 years from now, if they ever decide to go that route.
Wow. That was a great way to break it down.
Thanks, man.
So
I was like, because we've talked about that on the podcast. We're like, man, like we need to get someone on here that can really break that down for us one day.
I am a nerd when it comes to salary cap, man. Like my pandemic. Yeah, my pandemic project was reading the CBA twice. Like that's what I wanted to do. And so I went through the CBA, I read everything, I learned, and especially covering the Saints, you get a masterclass in it every time that they shell out a dang contract, because there's always some void year, there's some finagling of the salary cap, there's some restructure, there's all these incentives, like there's all these things. And so you'll pick it up pretty quick when you're covering this team in particular. Yeah,
and that's what I was telling him. I was like, you should hear him break down Michael Thomas's contract, Derek Carr's contract. That really opens your eyes and sees like, all right, it's not that bad of a contract at all, actually.
Yeah. Is Michael Thomas playing? Is he playing for a new contract this year?
Is he playing for a new contract? I think that's fair to say. This is effectively a 1-year deal. It's technically a 2-year deal, but there's like a $28 million, $37 million, and 50-something million roster bonus that cuts in 2024. So they either need to renegotiate the contract before whatever those settling dates are, or release him before that time. So one way or another, he's going to get a new deal, whether it's from New Orleans or elsewhere, if he stays healthy through 2023. But the 2023 deal is going to be very incentive heavy, so that he has a floor of about $6.26 million, and then up to around $8.74 million extra that he could add in incentives beyond that. So that's where he'll be this year. However he performs this year, though, would influence what 2024 looks like for him.
Yeah. Now, the Saints, obviously, coming into this offseason, they were like dead last in being over the cap. And we see that almost every single year. We talk about this podcast.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
crazy.
Is going to be interesting right here.
But I always tell them, I said, hey,
how much time do you have, Ross? Because this is what we always talk about right here.
I could do this in 7 minutes because I've done it before.
I said, Mickey Loomis is a genius. I said, salary cap isn't even a thing. I said, we got this. I mean, how do the Saints do it every year? I mean,
wait. Before you get into this, Ross, I got to ask one question. What hurts a team more, extending a player or turning their contract into a roster bonus?
It depends on the player. Sorry, not to be cheap about the answer or anything like that, but if you turn a player in, if you convert a player's salary into a roster bonus, and then you add, let's say, 3 years of void years to spread it out. What's the amount? What's the pro rate? What's the total? And then how much longer does that player sit on your roster? Because if that player plays out their contract, then it's worth it. If they don't play out their contract, just like an extension, it's not. The extension, though, gives you an opportunity to extend somebody, maybe give them some new money. Doesn't really solve your old money problems, but you can give them new money, express that in a certain way, and then you kind of have to, figure out what your structure is, how much of it's guaranteed, what's the signing bonus, what's the pro rate, how many years, all those other things. The difference is that you need a player to say yes to an extension. You don't need a player to say yes to a restructure. And the Saints just build it into their contract, basically, that when you sign with this team, you give us the right, not us, you give the Saints the right to restructure your contract. Yeah. And all that does is give the player a big old check. Well, not a big old check, but additional money that's paid out weekly during that first season after that restructure and everything. So the way that they get it done, though, is planning. Like while a lot of media looks at the salary cap year by year by year by year, the Saints use GAAP principles, GAAP, which are the generally accepted accounting principles. They kind of use that as their structure. And this is because Kai Harley, who's really the cap guru guy, he's their, I believe it's vice president of football administration, I think is his title.
Accountant.
Yeah, he's an accountant. He comes in from that side of the world. And so he comes in and he looks not at how much do I have to spend this year? He looks at what is the projection of what I have to spend for the next 10 years. And how do I use that? So the way that he used the salary cap is not in a vacuum on a year by year basis. They're effectively saying, okay, we're going to kick this can down the road. We'll sit on this dead money from previous years. But when we sign players, we'll give them a low first year hit. That way we backload all of that contract so that everything still fits in, even though we have all this dead money. So it's just like understanding your overhead, understanding your control of contracts. That's why this last CBA negotiation was so important, because one of the things that came with the original CBA that was about to just become default if they wouldn't have gotten it done in time is that there would have been a cap on how, like, the percentage that you're able to raise someone's base salary every year. So let's say there's like a 30% cap in terms of your ability to raise something up. So if you have a $1 million deal, then the highest you can go the next year is $1.3 million. Then the highest you can go the next year goes on and on and on. And so when they got the new CBA done, that went away. So now there's no cap in terms of how the sort of advancement of what a base salary is in 2023 versus what a base salary is in 2024. So if you look at Derek Carr's contract, his base salary in 2024 or 2023, his first year is $1.165 million. It's the vet minimum, but he's still making more money than that because they gave him a big old signing bonus right at the very beginning, and they guaranteed him $100 million. Next year, his base salary is $35 million. It ain't going to be by the time that they go to play their first game in 2024. They'll restructure that, push that money down the road. That gives Derek Carr more guaranteed money. So if he goes from getting eventually $100 million guaranteed to 129.66 whatever, million dollars guaranteed. And so like, that's the way that they manage this, is that they look at it sort of as a whole, as opposed to just year by year by year.
Wow.
But does that create a bigger dead cap hit when they do it like that, though? Like Dak Prescott just had his done, where I think his base was 2 million, but his dead cap hit for next year is 63 million, where it was supposed to be 14. Next year was the year we could have got out of his contract. And what they did now is they screwed us. And now next year it's like 63 million dead cap, and the following year it's 35 million dead cap.
Yeah. So yes, it does create more dead cap, but when the highest or the most expensive base salary that you have on your roster is $2.7 million, that's how you get under that, right? Instead of having a situation like in New Orleans, I think it's, there's $3 million. Bradley Roby has a $3 million cap hit in terms of his base salary in 2023. That's the highest, right? There's Traquan Smith with 2.7. There's Adam Troutman with 2.743. $3 million is your highest base salary. So because of that, you end up being able to say, yeah, I can carry $25 million of dead cap because the base salaries of all the players on this roster is extremely low. And so that's how you borrow against next year while still paying off what you borrowed from last year. And so you just keep all of those hits low and allows you to skirt right under all of it.
That's awesome. Like,
so let me ask you, when Derek Carr gets a $60 million signing bonus, is it as it sounds? As soon as he signs that contract, $60 million ends up in his account,
Bank of America,
or is that spread out?
Great question. So it's spread out. So it goes out through it's added. So what it'll be is that it's $60 million. It gets added over 17 weeks or maybe 18 weeks. Can't remember. Throughout his game check. So it shows up all throughout the season. And there might be some, configuration to that to where maybe a little bit of it comes up like immediately out in front or something like that. But for the most part, it just gets spread out over the course of that first year.
Okay.
We always wondered.
Yeah. It's not a situation to where they walk out with like one of those big old like $60 million checks from the game shows and stuff like that.
Well, I always just thought you'd open your app and like be like, wow,
there it is.
Right there in my bank account.
That hit quickly. Thank you, Mickey. Yeah. No, but like if you have but what the Saints will do is that if you have a $60 million cap hit, the maximum that you can spread out $60 million signing bonus, the maximum you can spread out a signing bonus is $5 million. It's over 5 years. So instead of that counting against the Saints in terms of their accounting at $12 million, at $60 million, it only counts $12 million each year. And everything. Wow. So they get the money out front within their first year, but the Saints or whatever team is doing this in terms of a signing bonus, which every team does signing bonuses, they're paying it off in fifths, in fourths, in thirds, depending upon how many they do it. But the most you can spread it out is in fifths.
Wow, you know your stuff. Wow. I applaud you.
Thanks, man.
I applaud you. So what I was gonna ask you before all that came out, like that was amazing. That was awesome. I mean, the Saints are in like the top half now with the money available. I mean, a couple of days they had like 17 million available at that point. Yep. We just signed a couple of free agents. I was gonna ask you, what's one free agent that pops in your mind that like we could use that money to go get him?
Yannick Ngakoue. That's
who I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. I mean, look, the interesting thing about Yannick Ngakoue is that he has had 8 sacks every single season of his NFL career. And in most cases, they have been some of the least impactful sacks you've ever seen in your life. Like in a lot of cases, it's, what do you call it? Garbage time sacks where quarterbacks trying to play hero ball and all these other things. But you look at the Saints defensive line, they lost 14 and a half sacks with David Onyemata, Caden Ellis, Shai Tuttle all heading somewhere else. And Marcus Davenport. Davenport only contributed 1/2 sack last year. But you lost 14 and a half sacks with 4 players leaving, and 7 of those came from Caden Ellis. So what's so wrong with having a guy like Yannick Ngakoue come in and hopefully give you 8, especially when you have a guy like Cam Jordan over on the other side who's had 7.5 since 2012. Right. Yeah. So you have that consistency that you're able to add on. I know there's a lot of people that really like the idea of Frank Clark and everything, just based upon what the Saints have done in terms of the culture guys that they brought in. Guys,
I liked him until you explained that. Until you explained that, I was like,
yeah. So I don't know that the Saints look past that. But look, they tried to look past Deshaun Watson, right? So maybe they could, but I just don't see that based upon what they have been focused on so much over the course of this offseason. Yeah. And so Yannick Ngakoue to me is that guy. I was originally, up until last night, I would have said Hunter Renfrow, but then that whole weird thing happened to where they found out that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma in his medical examination. That's third time. That's the third time since 2017 the Saints have found a life-threatening condition in somebody that they gave a medical physical to and everything. So pretty crazy, that story. But I think with that, with Hunter Renfrow, I'm so sorry. Foster Moreau, my apologies. It was Foster Moreau that happened with. With Foster Moreau now, like not a part of that conversation, I'd probably say Yannick Ngakoue.
I like that. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Now there's 14 teams that got like an A grade on off-season moves. The Saints, they got an A- as well. What holes do they still have to fill?
I think A- is a little high. I would probably say a B, like a solid B, for them, because defensive tackles still a place that they have work to do. They've got 4 defensive tackles on the roster right now. One of them is on a reserve future deal, which means he's basically guaranteed a ticket for training camp, but certainly not a roster spot. Linebacker is a spot that you're still looking to add depth. You can hope that DeMarco Jackson from App State, who they drafted in the 6th round last year, comes back off of his preseason injury and is awesome. But Can you rely on that? No. So I think you're looking at you're looking at depth at linebacker. I think adding another edge rusher, adding another pass rusher is a huge need for them as well. With Marcus Davenport gone, can you really say that Carl Granderson is going to be your starter opposite Cam Jordan, right? You're not entirely sure. He had a great, into his season where he effectively put Marcus Davenport on the bench at the beginning of games and everything. But, do you trust that is a long-term development sign, or was that getting hot at the right time?
Could you put Peyton Turner there? Like, could you move Peyton Turner on the edge?
I mean, he's an edge player. He's a defensive end, and they view him that way. But they need him to stay healthy. They need him to be, in shape. Like, there's still so many question marks. Like, you just don't know what you have behind Cam Jordan at that position right now. I don't think you can confidently say that you do if you're the organization. So I think edge is a spot. I still think getting a contested catch receiver, or let me say pass catcher, it could be a tight end or a wide receiver, is still important for them because you've got Michael Thomas, but as we mentioned earlier, like, can you trust that he's going to make it through the 2023 season? Like, you can't convince yourself just that, he'll be fine for 17 games. Like, you don't know that, right? And so I think having that other guy that would be able to come in and be that contested catch receiver is important, and that could be a tight end or a wide receiver. And I still think running back needs attention too. So I still think they have a lot of spaces to continue to address.
But they look good though.
They're in a good start.
I feel better. I mean, I know we lost a lot of pieces, but I feel good in this offseason where I feel a little bit better than last season after Winston got injured. The last question I want to ask you, and then I'll open the floor if these guys have any more questions before we let you go, is who do you want at 29? If you're the GM, who do you want at 29? And also to add on to that, do you think the Saints still draft a QB in the late rounds, even though we have Jameis Winston now?
Sure. I will say I'm not sure about quarterback. I don't think that the quarterbacks that they have preclude them from drafting a young quarterback that maybe they see a lot of good tools in, like a Aiden O'Connell out of Purdue, or somebody like that, or like a Jack Hayner out of Fresno State. But there's just so many guys in this year's class that are doesn't have NFL size, doesn't have NFL caliber arm, but got a heart of gold. That's that's really cool. But like, can you really trust that you're going to be able to develop it? I think that, like, if there's anybody to roll the dice on in day 3 of the draft, and as we discussed, rounds 3 through 7, not very successful historically when it comes to the drafting quarterbacks. If there's anybody to roll the dice on in that range, it's Max Duggan. That's my opinion. Out of TCU.
They have him going to the Cowboys.
I was hoping you'd say Hooker from Tennessee.
I see him day 1, day 2. I see him as first or second round. You know what I mean? So I looking beyond him, but like Hendon Hooker would be excellent, right? But
I was good with us taking him. If we didn't get Carr, I was like, I'll take Hooker.
Oh, 100%. But at 29, if I had my druthers, knowing that there could be a quarterback run early, an edge rusher run early, there's expected to be 2 cornerback runs in this draft. Does one hit in the first round? And there's expected to be a tackle run in the first round too. So if all of those things happen in the first round, wide receiver is going to fall. And if wide receiver falls, and there's an Ohio State guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba sitting there at 29 or at 20. Right. Something that's reachable for the Saints, who are always aggressive in the draft to go and get, well, not always, but can be aggressive in the draft to go and get the guy that they wanted. They walked in for Dennis Allen, Chris Olave. He basically said, when we go into the draft, we can't leave without Chris Olave. And so they made sure they didn't leave without Chris Olave. If they feel similarly to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who they will visit with later on this month, then there will be, or maybe at the beginning of April, I could see that jump happening, and that would be excellent because that takes care of your contested catch guy. 71.4% contested catch percentage over the course of his career at Ohio State, gives you a safety blanket if there is any additional injury to Michael Thomas, and gives you your wide receiver core post Michael Thomas if you don't bring him back in 2024.
It's an Ohio State wide receiver room at that point. I love it.
Is that a philosophy?
I love it. That's 3 of them.
You're a Michigan fan. Settle down.
Is that a philosophy?
Yeah, what meaning that they go after best available, or they potentially have targeted a position sort of thing?
Yeah, historically, what they try to do is fill needs. Well, so basically, the way that a New Orleans Saints typical offseason works is that they focus on bringing back in-house prospects. That's the first thing that they do, is that they try to bring back guys that they already know, the system, all that. Then they go and try to fill their biggest holes in free agency. So they did that a little bit here, right? 3 defensive tackles if you count bringing back Malcolm Roach.
Yeah.
Addressing the running back room with Jamaal Williams. They invested in a bunch of safeties, like a grip of safeties that they brought in up out of nowhere.
I like it.
Me too. And then they answered quarterback right before free agency even started, which was important. And so Like they kind of did that this year, but I do think this year there's still holes like we discussed here a moment ago.
Yeah.
So I think that what happens is that you go best player available, except for these positions. And then maybe quarterback doesn't really fit for you in round one, unless the perfect guy is there, right? If there's a Lamar Jackson style drop for a CJ Stroud, which would be ridiculous. But like if something otherworldly like that happens, sure. But you take that off, you probably take tight end off because the transition from college to the pros is probably hardest at tight end than any other position in the NFL. So if you want to spend a first round pick on an immediate impact player, you probably don't go tight end. Ask the New England Patriots. And then beyond that, you probably like cross off a couple of other positions where they feel good, but they might have defensive interior like Kalijah Kancey out of Pittsburgh, who I love in this year's draft. Mozzie Smith out of Michigan, another guy that I really like.
I like him.
Really like him. So like I can see the Saints addressing the trenches, or if the right wide receiver is there for them at 29, going that route too.
I like that move. I like that move. Now, Ohio State room, and we still got Rashid Shaheed. Like,
right.
What about Tajay Spears late in the draft?
Yeah, I mean,
Tulane.
I think third round, like 70, they pick at 71. That would be a great spot for Tajay. He'll be at the local pro day on April 7th. So the Saints will get a really, really close look to him. I don't know that you're going to see any top 30 visit with Tajay Spears because he's literally up the street. So I don't think that they have to really like worry about that. They can visit with him on their own time and they can do it other ways. And then they'll have that local pro day where they'll be able to spend some time with him. So they'll get a really close look at him. I was at the Tulane pro day. Mickey was there. Dennett DA was there. Joel Thomas, the Saints running back coach, was there. He took Tajay off to the side and they did some routes on air work. Not your like usual like routes on air work. I mean, they did some heavy stuff and he nailed it every step of the way. And so the Saints are like clearly understanding of the talent that they have in their backyard here. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him selected, but it depends on who else is there in the third round or in the fourth round and where they feel like running back is a spot that they would be willing to address.
They have him mocked to the Cowboys in 3 different mocks, which I would love to have him. But another one from Tulane, a sleeper, a linebacker, Dorian Williams. I don't know how to have him as a sleeper. The guy had 97 tackles last year. How's he a sleeper? But that's another pickup that would be huge for someone like the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic off-ball linebacker for you. He gets sideline to sideline super quickly. He's mad athletic. Like he does a really good job in terms of reading, react, click, and close kind of linebacker, secure tackler. I think the only thing is, can you bulk him up a little bit before the season starts or before he takes on a major role? And that's a good thing for New Orleans is that you can go after some of these underdeveloped or maybe even undersized, if you want to call him that. He's bigger than I'll ever be. But you can go after some of those guys because they're not going to be your starters for you, right? Like you've got Demario Davis, you've got Pete Werner, nobody's starting over them. And so, you can draft and develop these guys in the background. And look, they went for one of those guys last year in DeMarco Jackson, who same thing, a little bit undersized, a little bit light, but hyper athletic, can get sideline to sideline, fantastic leader, great special teams player. Like I could see them doing that, or like a Michigan State's Ben Van Sumeren, who just like blew up his pro day out of nowhere, things like that. Like there are some of these hyper athletic linebackers that are totally worth investing in day 3.
Wow. Well, Ross, one last thing I want to ask you, it's soft topic before we let you go. I like to play this little game with people that we have on the podcast because I know it fires my dad up. But if you're in the playoffs here, and just based off past experience in the playoffs, are you taking Dak Prescott or Jimmy Garoppolo?
Oh, goodness gracious. Can I quit?
You could.
Kirk Cousins?
I'll take Kirk Cousins.
That's a new one.
I
would too. I would too.
Like, really, all we did was they're all the same quarterback. Like it's just that there's real Kirk Cousins, there's Dallas Kirk Cousins, and then there's pretty Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo. Like that's really all there is. And so, like, I don't know. I would probably, honestly, if I was given, if I could make the decision out of those 3, I'd probably go with Kirk Cousins. If I had to make the decision between Dak and Jimmy Garoppolo, I'd take Dak.
Ooh, thank you.
I would take
we had this long talk.
Kirk Cousins can't play primetime games. That's his problem.
Right. Yeah. Give me the afternoon Nickelodeon game, and I'll have Kirk Cousins play that playoff game for sure. Right. But like for me, like Dak Prescott, I mean, I get the higher floor because of his mobility. I know that's shaky because of the injuries and things like that. I get the availability. I know that he's been injured, but he has not been injured to the extent of Jimmy Garoppolo. And if I need somebody that's going to be able to take some shots downfield, like if I'm going to trust somebody to be the accurate quarterback downfield when I need you to play hero ball, I would rather Dak be that guy than Jimmy Garoppolo because one of them has proven to be more successful there. Maybe not as successful as other quarterbacks in the NFL, but out of those two, give me Dak Prescott.
Now, I put this poll up on Twitter a couple of days ago. I said, since now that Rodgers is gone, Brady's gone, Russell Wilson's gone, the NFC's wide open. Who are your best quarterbacks in the NFC? And I had Hurts, I had Dak, and I had Cousins on that list. Do you see anyone else that stands out? I mean, Carr's over here now, but who would you take? And at the same time, what's the best team right now in the NFC? The NFC's wide open.
Yeah, it's all very, very, very wide open. I mean, I think the best team in the NFC probably is San Francisco right now, based upon what Philly lost in the draft, or excuse me, in free agency, my apologies, and the way that San Francisco retained, but also added. I mean, them getting Javon Hargrave from Philly was huge, right? Everything that they wanted Javon Kinlaw to be, Hargrave already is. Yeah. And so I think, you get that, you look at the players that they're going to retain and bring back. Adding Christian McCaffrey last year was just ridiculous. So the big question is, can you keep the quarterback healthy? Because that's where their biggest issue is. Really, their issues are a lot, really just injuries all told.
And they signed Darnold.
Right.
That's an interesting situation. That's a really, we were talking about that. I mean, Purdy starts in my opinion. I mean, but Trey Lance, I mean, you traded up how many draft picks to get there?
Yeah. I think you have to let Trey Lance lose his job. He has to, especially when you've invested that much as an organization, you have to give him the chance to lose his job. And if he loses it, he loses it, right? But you got to give him a shot to lose it. But I think, the best quarterback in the NFC is Jalen Hurts. And then there's kind of the field, in my opinion. But I think Dak Prescott's up there. I think Kirk Cousins is up there. I think Geno Smith could be up there. Like if he has another 2022, then yes, but there's no guarantee that he will, right? So we have to wait and see if that happens. Russ is on a decline. Matthew Stafford's on a decline, and and Carr's in there. And so, but I kind of think that's it for now. And then we'll have to see how the rookies impact that class too. But we won't have that answer until 2024, 2025.
I just thought a lot of the AFC teams need quarterbacks as well.
Yep. Houston, Indy, Las Vegas. You're absolutely right.
And let's face it, Tennessee's going to need one soon too, because who knows what's going to happen with Tannehill.
Probably need one now, honestly.
And there's rumors about Derrick Henry being moved too. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious about that one.
I think it's too late for that now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Maybe that's like a post-draft situation, or maybe even a draft day situation. Like the Aaron Rodgers move might not even happen until draft day in terms of what we're hearing. And so we'll see, but I could see something like that. Where does DeAndre Hopkins fit in that? Kyler Murray is probably another quarterback in there that should be higher, but he's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And that's what I mean. Like these quarterbacks are getting this money, and it's like it's the next man up mentality. Well, he got this, so I got to get this.
Yep.
Where's the good old days where you actually had to earn what you got? You know what I mean? It's just it's the way of the world.
I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive either, though, right? I do think that there is a level of I am a starting quarterback in the NFL. Starting quarterbacks are getting paid this much, therefore I earned it. Like I don't think that's the wrong attitude to have. Like when Daniel Jones was working on his extension, and it came out reported that he was asking for $40 million a year, and a lot of people went, "Oh, I can't believe he's asking for $40 million a year." Of course he is. I would, you know what I mean? Like, absolutely. Like if there's 32 of you, and some of them are getting paid one way, others are getting paid another way. And if you're somewhere in here, then you can't shoot for this. You got to shoot for all the way up here, right? You have to shoot for the top end of where you are. And that's what he did. So I think I don't think that those things are mutually exclusive, but I do think that like the swelling market is going to eventually become a problem if there's ever another dip in the salary cap, but we have to wait and see if that happens, because it took a global pandemic for that to happen.
Yeah.
So
this is the new style of football. Just like baseball, people love the long ball. Football now is a passing league.
Yep.
And that's what they want to see. They want to see these quarterbacks throw for 400 or 500 yards a game and not get hit.
Yep. It's the most important position on the field now.
It is.
And everything. But back in the day when I started watching football, the most important position on the field was the guy that hit the quarterback. And I'll tell you what, I think those were that was a lot more fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell these guys all the time, I'm an old head. You guys have not seen good football yet. When you ran across the middle and you got decked, that was good football. All right. So where do you sit on the Saints? Where are they going to be this year? They're going to win the South. That's obvious. Where do you see them going?
Yeah, I think they're rightfully positioned as the favorites in the NFC South. They'll probably be the 4th seed, I think, out of that. And then, I think maybe they win a wild card game because they'd be playing a familiar opponent potentially at the 5 seed there. And so or an evenly matched opponent at the 5 seed there. And so I think, them playing the top wild card team is probably where they're going to be. If they get enough right over the rest of the offseason, then I could see them potentially getting into the divisional round, right? Mm-hmm. And that kind of being the expectation for them. And then if they exceed that, they exceed that. If they come up anything short of that, though, it's disappointing in terms of what they can do. Yeah. But they still have, like I mentioned, they still have a lot of work to do. So Derek Carr was a great start. So are some of these other signings. But what's really going to kind of be the requisite of their success is who do they put around that quarterback? Who do they continue to build that defense out with?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Ross, we want to thank you for just joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on. We're going to continue with the podcast, but definitely have to have you on later in the season, man, and talk about how the Saints are doing. And I definitely need to get a setup like yours for anyone that's watching. That is an amazing setup.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Hey, look, anytime you guys need, hit me up. Happy to come through and everything. So it was such a blast, and I really enjoyed being here with y'all. Y'all take care and stay safe. I appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate
Thank you, Ross. Thanks for educating us on contracts and stuff. Thank you very much.
Anytime. See you guys.
See you guys. Oh, that was good. The whole salary cap thing too, man. My mind was kind of blown for a hot minute there. I'll be honest.
Well, same with the signing bonus, how it's actually usually a lot of the times it's paid out over the course of multiple, what did he say? A max of 5 years, I think, or something like that. They can break it out to. And so the fact that it's broken into a contract's insane, or like it's broken into the season, meaning, okay, let's say you're guaranteed 30 million for that season within the signing bonus contract. That's an extra, I don't know, 2 million almost per game check extra. That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about having these guests on, like people like that. Just, man, it blows you away, the things that we still don't know about the games that we watch and follow. Who needs a GM and who needs a free an agent? We could just get Ross on.
We were just talking like 2 episodes ago, like we need getting someone on here that can just really break it down for us. But that was good.
They haven't accounted. God dang it. They haven't accounted.
That's their secret weapon. That's their secret weapon.
It really is.
But you know what? All teams do it. It's just amazing. And you know what? We're seeing a new trend in football too, where I wanted to ask him about, is this a new trend where you're going to start seeing big names getting moved every off season, and you don't see them getting long-term deals now? I think you see them getting 2-3 year deals.
Like rentals, like a couple of year rentals.
Is that the new way of football?
I think a lot of machine learning goes into, because you have historical data on players' contracts, all of that crap that goes into like the accounting, finagling the numbers in historic or in like future sense. And so coupled with what you said, Chris, it's like all of that factors into big name guys getting let go maybe a year or two early, or just because they look at the contract in like future sense and realize, oh man, if we're going to have to pay this, if we're going to have to pay a running back, teams look at it like, we don't want to pay a running back position. We don't want to pay a tight end position. We don't want to pay. There's probably certain teams that say, we don't want to pay. We never want to give a second contract to this position or whatever. Linebackers sometimes.
Hey, just real quick, by the way, I know we're not talking about baseball, but breaking news that Reese Hoskins did tear his ACL today.
Yeah, he's done for the year. It's crazy.
That's so sad. It was a non-contact injury too.
Oh.
But you know what?
Edwin Diaz too, I think.
Oh yeah, that was sad. Yeah. That's sad.
Dude, Altuve, he broke his thumb. A bunch of players got injured in the World Baseball Classic. But you know what? Talking about the draft real quick, I mean, they have a lot of freaking sleepers. Like defensive tackle is one of the positions that he was talking about for you guys. The Cowboys are in that same hole. And they got Keondre Coburn, who's from Texas. He's 6'2", 332 pounds. He's started 45 games, man. He had 4 sacks, and he's ideal for clogging up the hole. Gerard Clark from Coastal Carolina, another fat boy, 6'4", 334 pounds. 10 sacks over the last 3 years. Jonah Tave, from San Diego State. He's not a bigger guy. He's 6 foot, but he's 208 pounds. But the guy is a motor. And 159 snaps at 1 tech, 3 tech, and 5 tech. He stretches the pocket. There's a lot of freaking players that you're going to be seeing that late. They had the Cowboys taking picks that like absolutely scratched my head. Why? Like tight end. Why? We took 2 tight ends the last couple of years. Why?
I don't think some of these people know what they're talking about as far as these mock drafts, man.
No, these are big name people, man.
If they do, then they know something that we don't. Hey, this is a trending all over Twitter right now. There's this guy. His name's Ken Francis. and the NFL has sent a memo out to all clubs that it is basically saying the NFLPA has informed the league that there is a person by the name of Ken Francis who is not an NFLPA certified agent, but he is contacting teams and attempting them to persuade team personnel to enter into negotiations with Lamar Jackson. This random guy that is trying to persuade teams to start negotiation talks with Lamar Jackson.
I mean, that's kind of smart because think about it. If Lamar's not doing it himself or if his mom isn't helping, hey, he's going to need somebody.
Yeah, but you know what? I saw a tweet out there where they came out and said Lamar Jackson turned down $200 million guaranteed, and he came back and said no. He's like, that's not true. He's like, I turned down 4 years, $133 million guaranteed, and he put who needs an agent. That's good money. 4 years, $133 million.
And also, if you ever listen to Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show, like, I don't believe anything he said anymore because he's like, he literally says, like, some of the stuff that I read, I'm like, where did you even get this information from? Like when he talked about, remember when we talked about Green Bay apparently got a note sheet, or the Jets did, from Aaron Rodgers saying these are the players I need. He was like, he was told about that, and he was like what? Like that's absurd. That's absurd. That's absurd.
Dude, speaking of Green Bay, real quick, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers? Green Bay is going to screw him. They're going to screw him out of playing football.
I think the Jets are moving the right pieces for him.
I think
they are trying. Right. I think they're trying to get OBJ now. I mean,
that's all Lazard, fine and dandy. It's all fine and dandy. But as long as Green Bay's begging for a first round pick and they're not willing to give up a first round pick, guess what? I'd be calling Baltimore about Lamar Jackson.
I think
be on that phone.
Right. I think Ross is right where something gets down around the deadline or the draft night, because that's
Mark Murphy's not even talking about him anymore. Mark Murphy, the GM for Green Bay, is not even mentioning Aaron Rodgers' name anymore.
I think he still goes to the Jets. I think it's just a patient thing. I think they're just slowly taking the process and trying to get the right deal done.
But you're holding an organization hostage who doesn't have a quarterback. Imagine they get all these weapons and they got to go back to Wilson.
Well, they still have a decent draft pick. So if they don't get Rodgers, they draft somebody, or they trade up in the draft for somebody. Like you're loading your team up, so you might as well go get somebody.
Dude, I just think they're sticking it. The Green Bay is sticking it to Aaron Rodgers. I really do. They're holding firm on what they want, and they want a first round pick and multiple picks for a guy who's 38 years old who could retire any season. I wouldn't give it up. I'd be on the phone with Baltimore. What do you want? I want Lamar Jackson.
Well, let's talk about something that went down there in D-Town. You know, Zeke Elliott gets cut. We talked about it possibly happening. Awesome. He comes out today, narrows it down to 3 teams: Jets, Eagles, and Bengals. I texted you and said I could see him going to Cincinnati because he played Ohio State. Where do you guys think Zeke lands? Do you think he lands to the Jets? Jets don't need him. They got 2 great running backs. Eagles, I guess, could use him. All they got is Penny and Scott. But the Bengals only have Joe Mixon. So him and Joe Mixon, like, that would be one heck of a duo.
I think the Chargers, if they are gonna, number one, he fits in with Ekeler, even if they don't, even if they somehow bring him back. But Chargers seem like a team that needs even just depth. But I think Joe Mixon. I think if you can get into Cincinnati, I mean, geez, you can almost guarantee a playoff run or a playoff spot, at least if you're Zeke. But
and doesn't Joe Mixon have some kind of court stuff going on too, where a kid got shot in his house?
No, I think that came out and said it wasn't him. Like, he was proven. I think that was dropped because they said that wasn't him. Let me read you something real quick. This is Zeke Elliott's stats from 2022. I saw this on Twitter today by a CBS reporter. This is 22 amongst 22 running backs with 200 or more carries. Yards per carry, Zeke was 3.8, was ranked the last. Percentage of 10-yard rushes, he had 7.4%. That was tied for last. Tackles avoided, 32. That was tied for last. Do you think Zeke's on the downfall? Do you think there's anything left for Zeke? Like, do you think
he's on the downfall? That's why he's not in Dallas. They negotiated with him. He wants starter money. Him and his agent believe he's still a starter in the NFL. Dallas did the best thing they could. They got rid of him. And after June 1st, they're going to get that $10 million back.
I think he'd be good. I think he'd be a good duo. Not a starter, but like I think if he is coming behind Joe Mixon, like a power guy on the 3-yard line or something, I think he's
a third down and goal line back. That's all he is anymore. That's it. End of story. He had a great career.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know many other teams. I mean, God, Chargers really stood out. I mean, maybe the Seahawks, but I think they got enough backs already there that work out. So
dude, all I know is I am so pumped for football, and I know we didn't even start baseball yet, but this is the most aggressive I've ever seen the Dallas Cowboys since Jimmy Johnson days.
You guys got Brandon Cooks, huge thing. Brandon Cooks, man, that was huge. Me and Noah talked about that and said you don't need a Hopkins, you don't need a guy that's going to go in there and steal the spotlight from CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks for a 5th round pick and next year 6th round pick. That was an amazing deal. He's still a good receiver.
And they restructured his deal. They're only paying him $4 million next year. They gave him an $8 million freaking bonus.
He's been dying for this too. He played great with the Rams when they were good. He went to the sucky Houston Texans. Now he's back on a winning team.
Begged to get traded last year, basically.
They stripped him from the captain spot because he wanted to get traded. Like, come on, man.
Only one team has more regular season wins than the Dallas Cowboys in the last 2 years, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. And Dallas went all in, man. They signed all the people they needed to sign. They filled all the holes they had to fill. The only hole they didn't fill yet was defensive tackle, and they have Mozzie Smith going to them at number 26 in the draft.
Mozzie Smith.
But you know what? I'm happy. I've never seen the Cowboys this smart financially and this smart doing things in the offseason. Usually the offseason, they go down to freaking Bermuda or wherever they go on Jerry's yacht, and you don't hear from the Cowboys. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Good. Ace, how do you feel about your Vikings? Your Vikings make any moves? Obviously, they signed Davenport. That was suspicious because it took a while for them to officially announce it for some reason. I don't know if there was a failed physical or something. Yeah. He didn't produce well last year, but he is a good big body. It has been for the Saints as far as tackles, especially with the run game. How do you feel about the Vikings? They released Adam Thielen.
Mm-hmm. Kendricks is gone, linebacker, found out. Well, we kind of knew Kendricks, Thielen, Cooker. I like the Davenport signing. I also think we're going to have to draft heavy either on the line or both lines, interior, offensive line, defense. I think defensive line as well as linebackers. We need, after letting Kendricks go, we're very thin at the linebacking core. And then of course we're, basically at 0 on the salary cap. We're the last. I looked real quick when we were talking with Ross. We are literally dead last when it comes to the amount that we have available within the cap to stay
How
under. So
crazy is that the Saints were negative 50 and we were top 10 a couple of days ago. But I feel your pain, Ace. I feel your pain, Ace.
Top 15. So I think the draft is going to be the first one with, or no, is it the second? I think with Quezzy. I can't remember. I think this is the second time with the new GM, Quezzy, and the front office or the head coach, obviously O'Connell. So I have a feeling I'm hoping they draft. I love it when they go defense, and then offensive line, but I could also see us trying to get, when he said the Ohio State receiver, Jackson Smith, I could see the Vikings going for him if he's available too.
Yeah,
because
the Saints
he's a
stud. Come on.
Well, I did a little homework for you guys. I did 1 3-round mock draft for the Cowboys, the Saints, and Minnesota. And if you guys did one, you're more than welcome. The Saints in their 3-round draft, they have Bijan Robinson going with the 29th pick.
That's so weird.
The 40th pick, they have cornerback Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State. And in the 3rd round, the 71st pick, they have defensive tackle Keno Benton from Wisconsin. Minnesota only has a 1st and a 3rd pick, so I didn't get to do a 2nd round pick for them. At 23, they have Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State, cornerback going to them.
Oh, that's a good one.
And in the 3rd round, number 87th pick, they have Moro Ogumo from Texas, defensive tackle, going to Minnesota.
Take it. I like that too. I did it, and I picked Jackson Smith, and then I picked, I think, ED edge defender, the LSU.
Are you talking about the Pro Football Focus one that you could do?
Yeah,
I did it, and I thought I picked so well, and 3 of the guys that gave me an F for. I was like, what?
Yeah. This is the Cowboys 3-round mock draft that they had. I got it from the same site. I think it was Bleacher Report. Dallas trades the number 26 pick to Kansas City for the 31st and the 95th. Dallas then trades the 31st pick to Carolina for the 39th and the 93rd pick. Dallas drafts in the second round at number 39, defensive tackle Mozzie Smith from Michigan. Dallas then trades number 58 and number 95 to New England for pick number 46. Dallas drafts round number 2 and number 46, cornerback Cam Smith from South Carolina. And then in round 3, since they made trades, they got 2 picks. At number 90, they get Tajay Spears from Tulane, running back, and Raheem Jarrett from Maryland, receiver. That sounds like a good draft to me.
Hold up. Did you make those trades yourself?
No.
This was someone else's draft.
This is from Bleacher Report.
Okay.
Yeah. Mel Kiper has him drafting some freaking no-name defensive tackle. I'm like, yeah, no. Whatever, Mel, you're losing it.
You guys.
I can't wait for the draft, man.
Sorry, last thing I'll say about everything football. I'm going to try to get Spears in my fantasy football thing.
I like Spears.
You guys are high on him, and after Ross,
hey, remember that checklist I made? Trade Sean Payne for first round pick, re-sign Michael Thomas, done. Sign Derek Carr, done. Draft Spears. That'd be the greatest call ever. Yeah, how about the Jets? You guys feeling confident the Jets are getting OBJ? Because apparently, hear me out. Apparently, they're both in the same kind of vibe. They both want to sign there, and now all of a sudden, OBJ just followed Alan Lazard on Instagram.
That don't mean anything. That's
I don't know.
Look at if he still wants over $20 million a year, he's not going to the Jets.
He said that's not what he said, but he doesn't want to take $4 million.
Yeah, well, guess what? You're gonna get what you get. You tore your knee twice, and you're 30+ years old. You're gonna get what you get. Welcome for another chance. That's what I'd say to you. Welcome to him for another chance.
He's a good player.
Anyway, real quick, the Dallas Cowboys are real good at finding sleepers. Since we did talk about sleepers earlier, they got Dorrance Armstrong, who had a career year last year with 8.5 sacks. They got him in the 4th round. Cedric Wilson, they got him in round 6. Dalton Schultz, they got in round 4. Tony Pollard, they stole in round 4. Donovan Wilson, who's one of the best safeties in the league, they stole in round 4, I believe, at round 5. Israel Mukumo, they got him in round 6. He's a center. He's a cornerback for the Cowboys. Jabril Cox, they stole him from LSU, got him in the 4th round. Quentin Bohanna, the 6th round. Tyler Biadasz, who almost made the Pro Bowl this year as a center, 4th round. Jake Ferguson, we got him last year in the 4th round. Deron Bland, who led the team in interceptions last year as a rookie with 6 interceptions, got him in the 5th round. And Damone Clark, we stole him last year, a linebacker who had a neck injury. We got him in the 5th round. We have 7 of the club's projected 2023 starters come from day 3. And, after this year with Cowboys doing all their offseason moves, we now have 11 first-round picks on our roster.
Wow.
Which really don't mean nothing because they're really good first-round picks that still be with their original team.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you guys want to talk about the World Baseball Classic a little bit?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I want to say about the World Baseball Classic, number one, obviously, huge shout out to Japan. They beat US 3-2. It was an amazing game. Amazing time for baseball. The fan base watching, the teams, the games were just so great. The flashy plays, the home runs, Trey Turner.
I got numbers.
Trey Turner going off. The only thing I want to say is the way the championship game ended couldn't have been better.
Epic.
Your best pitcher in MLB baseball facing one of the best players in MLB. And here's a crazy stat I want to share with you.
I got it.
Mike Trout versus Ohtani. Mike Trout has only had three swinging strikes in only 24 at-bats out of 6,174 in his career.
I thought I'm the stat guy.
Everybody looked at people that don't know baseball, man. They were looking at that and they're like, oh my God, why can't he hit the ball? Bro, the guy was throwing 102 miles an hour and then throws you a slider. I think it's funny that he nails him with 2 100-mile-an-hour powers. And then he throws him in the dirt that's 102. You knew he was trying to put everything he had into that ball to strike Trout out. Mm-hmm. I could feel he was going to strike out, man. Ohtani is just so good. I thought we had it with Darvish in the game. Kyle Schwarber went yard, and I was like, this is it. We got it. But, hey, I applaud U.S., man. We won the championship last time. We made it to the championship this year. But I agree with you, Dad. I know we talked about that. We lost a lot of pitchers before it even started, and we didn't have enough starting pitching. The bullpen was good, but the starting pitching is what really killed us.
Well, Ohtani's tied for first in 3 stats in the World Baseball Classic. One is for the longest home run. One is for, I think, the fastest hit ball, and the other one is the fastest pitch ball of 102 miles an hour. The amazing thing is this only happened 5 times. The World Baseball Classic. Japan has now won 3 of them. 97.4% of all the TVs in Japan were turned on to this game.
Wow,
that's how big it is. 90. That is amazing number.
Well, they look up to America. They said they're trying. They want to be like, they love baseball.
Yeah. Shohei Ohtani had, when he was in high school, he had lifetime goals that he wrote down. Join the major leagues by the age of 18, master English, and reach AAA by 19. For age 27, which he's 27 years old, be a member of Japan's World Baseball Classic team and be an MVP.
Wow.
He nailed that goal to a T. Nailed it.
He's amazing. Like you said, and I wouldn't have wanted to lost to anybody else, because the way Japan gives you respect after they celebrate, man, like they deserve it. They're a good ball team.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
The numbers are astounding. The first round alone saw a 98% increase in attendance from the previous 6 years ago when they had it in 2017. Over 1 million fans showed up, which is more than the Marlins in Oakland drew in their stadiums all of 2022.
Wow. That stadium was packed, man. I wanted to go, but I didn't go.
The final TV numbers aren't in, but Japan versus Korea drew more than 62 million viewers just in Japan alone. Wow. That's more than the most watched World Series game in history. It's nuts. The next game is in 2026. Mike Trout already said he's going to play in it, and it's going to probably be in Japan. Japan is one of the things one of the places that's going for it.
Dude, it's crazy. Do you know when they play games, it's like a college football stadium. Like they are playing instruments, they're chanting.
Did you see them in the freaking stadium
with the trumpets
and everything?
Yeah. Dude, it's crazy.
That's not Japan.
That's Japan, man.
Yeah,
that's Japan, man.
Yeah, but key injuries were Freddie Freeman, hamstring, Altuve, broken thumb, and Edwin Diaz with a torn ACL. Here's some key moments. Now, this is amazing. Some key moments from the game. Shohei Ohtani got punched out by a full-time electrician from the Czech Republic, struck Ohtani out. Nicaraguan right-hander was going so hard on Machado, Soto, and Rodriguez that the Detroit Tigers signed him to a contract.
It's amazing.
And then it said the most interesting thing was dozens of fans showing up to see Ken Griffey Jr. take batting practice and still be able to hit home runs. And he
hit a home run, man. I'll tell you what, man. World Baseball Classic.
It's awesome.
I love it. I love it. I love it, man. And these guys, I love when you see guys like Trey Turner and Schwarber who have been to World Series, and they're like, this atmosphere it's nothing compared to the World. It's because you're playing for your country. And I had a good talk with someone where I said they were talking about like the guys that go to the World Baseball Classic are more open and day ready than the spring training guys. And I said, you're right, because you think about it, with these guys that are starters at spring training, they'll have a bat here, they're having that bat there. They know they got their spot. Mm-hmm. Like when you're playing the World Baseball Classic, like you need to be good right now because you're playing for your country. It's amazing. I love the fact that Trey Turner and Schwarber are on the same team at the Phillies, and Trey Turner just. He's the kind of role model that I would look up to if I was in high school. Like you see this, not like a skinnier, like muscle guy, but he's hitting home runs left and right. Mm-hmm. Amazing. I loved it. I loved all of it. It was good stuff.
Well, the baseball season is getting ready to kick off. The Yankees still have a couple holes they have to fill. They got to figure out what they're going to do with these young kids. They actually have IKF taking catching position now.
Yeah, that's dumb. What?
Because their plan right now is Volpe is going to be the future second baseman, and he's not IKF's. They're trying to build up his reputation so he can get moved to another team.
Straight into the Astros.
Yeah. Well, he's probably going to play third base now because I think Donaldson got hurt after having
just put him at third base because I don't mind IKF. He's not a bad player, but we have all these prospects, so you can't keep them all up.
Yeah, but as of right now, the average time of games is 2 hours and 36 minutes and this is from spring training. It's down from 3:01 last year. 25-minute decrease is a consistent with the 21-minute decrease when a 14-second pitch timer was introduced to AAA last season. Pitch clock violations have gradually declined from 2 per game all the way down to almost none per game. They're at 1.03 by the 4th week of spring training. So hopefully that'll be whittled down. So everyone's adjusting. They are going to make a couple changes, small changes to the pitch clock. I guess when pitchers make a play covering first base or the catcher or has to go behind the catcher, they're going to, the umpire's going to have the ability to hold the clock from counting. Same with catchers. If they have an inning where they batted, have to put their equipment on, they'll be able to have the authority to stop the clock from starting a counting procedure.
Did you guys see the little Instagram video that MLB posted for the whole like bags being bigger? I'll send it to you. It's funny. It's good. It's really funny.
But as of right now, coming out of spring training, this is your power rankings. They have the Braves of all things as number 1. They said they improved their offense. They have the Padres at number 2, the Astros at number 3, the Mets at 4, Dodgers at 5, the Yankees at 6, and they have the Twins at number 13 in the power rankings.
Who won the World Series last year?
Astros.
Your Houston. Yeah.
Can't stand them.
Well,
guys,
in baseball.
That sucks too. The Phillies injury
that's huge, especially after you get Trey Turner. Yeah, that's
not to mention they're not going to have Harper for a while either.
And yeah, that's a huge catcher is probably one of the most important positions on if not the most. So,
dude, they have a list of surprising and disappointment teams. They have the Yankees listed as a disappointment this year, and it's crazy.
Don't read into that. Come on,
Chris, maybe it was after the injuries because they're saying Bader's. They're saying Rodon's basically ready to go back out there, and Bader's recovery is going amazing.
Nasty Nestor had a great day today, but they said the offense relied heavily on the home runs, leading the MLB
every year.
254 last season, but the power failed them. The Yankees were not impressive. Their 5.549 OPS in the postseason was the worst of any team that played in more than 2 postseason games.
Who is this?
It's true. Guy? It's true, and they couldn't drive in runs. So anyway,
sounds like Chris Klein up in there.
Anyway, hey, just because I have my takes doesn't mean you have to like them. But majority of the times, I'm right.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. Should I list them? Should I list them?
No.
You know what I saw was an impressive stat. You know, Boston was horrible last year, right? Right?
Yeah.
You agree?
Oh, just as a team
in baseball.
Yeah.
You know what their record was outside their division? They were 52-34 outside the division. They were horrible in the division. That's why they fell off.
Maybe that'll be good for them this year.
Yeah, because we're not playing the division as much. But just think of that, 52-34 out of your division.
It's a great stat.
That's how powerful the American League East is.
It's the best.
They are the best.
And I'm officially no longer a Flyers fan. I jumped on the Avalanche. I jumped on the bandwagon. Got to support my Colorado Avalanche, even though they lost.
I like
last
that. I like that. Make a move to your state. I thought about making a move to my state. And I was gonna do hockey too, but I just don't watch it.
Panthers.
Yeah, I was gonna choose the Panthers because they're only like 30-40 minutes from me.
And look, I jumped on at a good time. They had their 6-game win streak snap last night, losing 5-2 to the Penguins, who snapped their losing streak of 4 straight. So I jumped on a bandwagon at a good time. So they can't say, well, they're winning, that's why you like them. No, they just lost, and I like them now. I can't name one player on the team, but I like them.
Yeah.
But we want to thanks again to Ross Jackson.
Awesome interview.
Who was just an awesome interview for us. Hope you guys have enjoyed this podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Share the love. We love you guys, and we hope that we get to see you guys next time. All right.
Peace.